Alright guys, this is the Crossbones Civil War, Captain America Civil War helmet back. And so I'll show you kind of what I did. You can kind of see, obviously with foam there's still going to be some flaws, but not horrible. So what I did is, after creating that template and making the helmet, I cut out the pieces, right? Glued them together, sanded it down a little bit, and as you can see, I cut this out and created the recess piece so that it sits further in, so it just gives it a little more character there. That's kind of how it was in the actual movie anyway. So I did that. I added these straps in, so all it is kind of craft foam. Added craft foam there. And to the back I added this kind of back leather piece, is what it was supposed to be in the actual helmet. So I added a little groove there so it kind of looks a little more like a piece of leather there. And then I added this piece. This was what I was dremeling out of the thicker EVA foam mat. I drew it out and then I created the angles on it. And then of course you can see elastic nylon band that I added, which is on there. That's part of the strap that's in the actual thing. So you can see I still have my drill holes for where my helmet's going to pivot. And it actually fits rather good. You know, if I have a skull cap on, or even a like a head wrap, that's going to work just fine with that, a bandana, whatever. Just something to keep the sweat out of your eyes. Luckily this is very light and it's pretty breathable considering there's openings in the mask. I dremeled out the top so that there's some air that can flow through this, and then as far as the eyes and then the mouth, you also have breathing room. So it shouldn't get too hot, and it is quite light, so it'll be very comfortable to wear for hours and hours on end at any Comic-Con or something like that. Now, here is the paint job that I did for my Crossbones mask. So I think it looks a little closer to the real thing. I took my time, looked at a lot of the pictures, and that is a lot of how they have it on there. So that gives you an idea. I might add a little more white to this. He did have some scrapes and scuffs on it like that. But I might, it just looks a little out of place. But other than that, I added some wire reinforcement on the inside there for both the top and the mask, because the mask, once I cut out this part, the support isn't quite as strong, and so I wanted to add a little bit where I could mold it and kind of round it to the size I wanted or the angle that I wanted. So I added that. These are little stoppers here that are going to keep it so I know exactly where the mask should fall in accordance to the helmet. And yeah, I'm going to put basically a washer, the nut, or I'm sorry, another washer once it goes through here, and then the nut on top of that, so that basically when it fits in there, it's going to be like that. So as you can see, let me line it up a little bit more here. I just want to be careful not to scuff it too much right now while I'm just figuring out where I'm going to get it. There we go. And same with this side. That's about it right there. So that's how it's going to look. So we got it lined up pretty perfect. So I'm going to screw that in. Alright, I got the finished product. I got my bandana on my head in case you don't want to wear the knit cap. The knit cap's going to keep your head hotter. I thought this would be more comfortable if you're going to wear it for long periods of time. So just the bandana tied. Here is the final mask. So as you can see, it is put together and it actually looks pretty good. And yes, you put some time in, a little bit of work, but really it didn't cost all that much. A lot of it's EVA foam, elastic straps, spending time with your Dremel, your concrete cement, and whether it's barge cement or whatever, and just making sure that you have the fitting the way you want it. Now, be aware that if you want to smooth this out, you can take a lot of time to do it. What I used, for those of you who have a 3D printer or a friend that has 3D printing, all you need is acetone and a little bit of the actual like 3D printed scraps or the spool that it comes on. Cut them into little pieces, throw it in a, I believe it's a recycle number 2 bottle, one of those that it won't deteriorate or get eaten away by the acetone. Pour it into the same bottle, mix it up, let it sit for a few hours, and then that makes a great light plastic coating. And so what I did is just over and over, I went over it with the acetone plastic coating, and you can see that it kind of smoothed out the foam a little better where you see some of the ridges and stuff. So that's what I used just to kind of smooth it out. And you can spend more time on it if you want to just kind of make sure that it's perfect the way you like it. I just kind of finished it for this video so that we have it. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So here it is, swivel points. I actually used a washer and then the like an extra nut in there along with that. And then when you look at the inside, I actually, let's see if you can see this, I actually dremeled out a small little recess inside so that I can put the nut in there without it kind of sticking out into my temple. Although there is a little nub from the screw that goes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue it and just round it out a little bit so it's not quite as prominent and it won't be sticking in, although you have some padding a little bit with this anyway. It's not going to be a big deal. But anyway, let's get on to it because that's what you guys are waiting for. Here's your pivot. Okay, you just throw it on. That is how it works when I have it flipped up. And boom. That is, I don't know if you can see, there's a lot of, there we go. A lot of sun coming in, but there's also shadowing. So that is it. You dropped a building on my face. I'm coming for you, Captain America. So, Crossbones mask done yourself with a cheap mask. You made a flip up now. You have something that looks a lot more like the one in the movies. So now it's time to work on your armor. And yeah, so that is Crossbones. Pretty simple. Gives me something I can eat, I can breathe, I can look through comics, toys, whatever I want to do this way if I want to get some air. Yeah, sits on my head nice and tight. I don't have to do anything with it. It's really pretty light, actually. You could probably add a chin strap if you want to, if you're going to get real vigorous with it and kind of jump around. But really, that's actually pretty dang good. So here is the finished Crossbones 2.0 mask, and I wanted to show this so that you could actually see I did a few adjustments to it just to make it a little more wearable and aesthetically. If you look at the paint, what I did is I used the alcohol-based markers that you use for drawing. Some artists use it for comic book drawing. But basically you can get any, like a name brand or a non-name brand marker that has the alcohol base. What I did is I took to the paint and I kind of drew on it, and then I'd take a napkin and I would wipe it off. So that kind of gave it more distressing, so it kind of gave it a little bit more of that kind of painted on feel in certain spots. And I did notice that when I looked at the picture of his mask, it wasn't all just the paint streaks. They were kind of almost looked like sponging or something like that. What I did with that is I just took a paint marker and I just kind of tapped it around in certain spots to try to give it a little bit of that look there. So it's kind of what I did with that. And then basically I added some coloring. I used the alcohol-based markers in like a bone yellow, kind of bone white, just to give it a little bit of depth so it's not all just blatant white shining at you. Another addition I added to it basically is the inside of the chin strap here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it too well, but I have some tape there. I added a wire frame so that I can adjust the narrowness or width of the chin part of the mask. I thought it was a little wide looking on me, so I added that wire in there to kind of form fit it to my face. I also added, I don't know if you can see this, on both sides there's this. Basically this stops the helmet right where I want it to sit on my face, so it's like a block. I also added this for weight. Basically this is a knee pad. It's a hard plastic that goes around like some of the knee pads that they have for, like, you can use it for skateboarding or roller blading or any of that. But basically I just added that for a little bit of, it concaves to the head and it adds a little bit of weight, so when I lift the mask up, even though this is lighter, this is light, because the foam is also light, it tends to kind of shift on your head. It gives it just enough weight that it'll sit on my head and sit backwards so I can continue to look up. So let me show you guys that now. So it's almost a perfect fit. I have to just move my ears in, and this is what I'm talking about. So it won't shift so much. You see how the weight kind of keeps it? Whereas if I did this before, it would probably just stay down. So this will keep that weight back towards my head, and it sits much better that way. And then as far as, so when I flip it down, boom, there it is. Now you can kind of, normally I have like a bandana on underneath or whatever, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. But just so you can kind of see what the mask looks like. Again, some of the distressing, some of the discoloration. You can't really see that as well in this video, but if you look at it up close, and you can kind of see some of it in there. And again, so here's just kind of the helmet itself. I think it fits really well. It's very comfortable. I already wore this all day at one of the Comic-Cons, and I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, and then of course if you want to go overboard, you can definitely add all the scarring there, and that will kind of add to the effect of Crossbones there. So that's it, Crossbones 2.0. Very cheaply made, on a budget, but definitely works well. Something that you could get a lot of use out of. So yeah, probably under $20, especially if you know what you're doing and you don't use a lot of extra material or anything like that. And if you have some of it laying around the house other than the tools itself, you're good to go.